So hello everyone. You can hear me, right? Yeah. Everywhere, perfect. So today we're talking about how AI is actually changing the way how we develop software. And what we do with this at Spryker, what's our learnings, and what we want to provide to our customers, partners, and developers. Quick introduction. I'm Alex Galych, SVP of Technology. So I'm responsible at Spryker for entire life cycle of software delivery, starting from preparation of what we want to deliver together with product team, designing, developing, and then operating. And today we'll be trying to do like as a presentation, not as a theorist, but more like as a practitioner, because what we also do every day and what I do, like one of my responsibilities with our delivery teams is to make sure that we actually leverage AI for delivering more value. And I want to start the presentation with a quote of one of our lead engineers that I think summarizes very well in general the feeling of developers. Yeah, I hope that you also have very similar, that AI is actually now, for a lot of people, indispensable from a daily work. Whether it's good or bad, it's another discussion. There's also different talks about, and we also saw it today, what kind of expectation it raises. But in general, AI is here. AI is already for a few years here. And just every presentation that I do every year, I just see that we have it more and more. And today I had some discussions that I had with you. I think just confirm it. And if we just look into some of statistics about what exactly is the daily usage of AI tools, this is already like a few months old, I believe like half a year even old, from Stack Overflow, says that more than 82% of software engineers in the world use AI on a daily basis. Can you raise your hand if you use it on a daily basis? Okay, I think we have probably something close, as we also at Spryker have more than 90%, and I would say here we probably have definitely close to 100. But is using AI does automatically mean that we're more productive and more efficient. There's also another study, very interesting one, that was conducted this summer that started with like how economists and business people predict the value, that like and how AI speed up developers and engineers in delivering different features. Then also how technical experts forecast it and developers, and usually it was within like 30 to 50% of efficiency increase. Even developers, quite often senior developers, they said, with AI tool I can do it faster. The result was quite interesting. Sometimes it was even slower, and slower up to like 40%. You might be asking like what are the reasons? And the reasons were like, first of all, there were senior developers, and for some of the tasks, thinking is still faster than just brute force in AI. Not a surprise. For others, just because like I think it's also very familiar to you, the complexity of the projects where we're working on, just to explain, if you want to make some correction to AI, it's not always faster just because to write it in a prompt and to try to give all of necessary context to get a value is not always faster than just to make this correction. So it depends on the task. For some of the tasks, definitely there's a value, but sometimes if you just use it directly, just take a tool and try to implement it or use it for some particular task, it's not always like that. And here, like a key message that tool doesn't, like AI as a tool doesn't mean automatically a value. And maybe to zoom out a bit also, how we see that AI is being used as of today. And if you just imagine like a standard software development lifecycle, and you would see how different roles that are involved in software development lifecycle use AI today, it's actually very in silos. Developers try to do something with AI, product managers try to do something with AI, SREs, designers, and so on. And there we will have some incremental improvements, hopefully, but this kind of handover of knowledge, handover of artifacts, and handover of work between these roles is where we're really losing a lot of opportunities that we will explore later what actually our idea, how to potentially solve it. If you look at even a bit more like a bigger picture in terms of famous Gartner hype cycle, today was also presented by Philipp Glockner. I have it a bit slightly different interpretation. You know about this, like every innovation starts with trigger, then goes to the peak of inflated expectations, very, very down to disillusionment, then coming back and have a plateau of productivity. And what do you think where we are now with AI tools in software delivery? Who thinks that we are in a stage 1? Please raise a hand. Oh, that's surprising. Yesterday, when we were talking a bit more like with the business people, I had way more hands. Honestly. Who thinks that we are on 2? So it's a peak of inflated expectations. Okay, more. It's good. Who thinks we are 3? So we're really like in a very, very deep disillusionment. Nice. And who believes that we are 4 and actually we already reached a plateau of productivity? Okay, so we are somewhere between 2 and 3 and slightly around 4. It's good that we are actually not saying that we are on technology trigger, because it means that like if you're 2, 3, and 4, then it means that we can start adopting it in a more strategical and systematical way and start to leverage value from this. But before we go deeper into like adoption, there is still, in my opinion, different types of AI usage or AI applications in terms of where they are also in a hype cycle. And if you're talking about a very basic approach with a prompt and response AI, so something like a ChatGPT or Gemini, when you just go, you write a prompt, like you say, please give me like a bubble sorting in PHP, and you get like algorithm, right? You get this piece of code. I don't think that we are like big inflated expectations. That's already like plateau productivity. Everyone knows how to do it. There's not that much of like innovation is coming with that. And after 3 years, I think like most of us already learned what is a zero shoot learning, so what like multiple shoot prompting, and how in general like write the prompts. So this kind of approach, the most standard one, it's already like on plateau of productivity. There's incremental improvements that come in from like release maybe on better models, but there's no really huge innovation happening there. But then there is another one that already a bit interesting one. Is talking about AI agents. That's where AI can not only just generate directly an answer, but already has a memory, maybe to store the result in between the requests, also has some tooling to go to the internet, check something, also to maybe deal with some of the files. And this one, so agents, I think you've heard a lot about them. They're kind of now on a peak of expectations, because we've already seen some of the applications where it's been applicable, where you can see quite interesting results, because now AI can go to the database, AI can go somewhere else to get your value. So it's become quite interesting, because it's now a way more powerful tool than just ask like a large language model to just generate something. And then there is a third one that is actually Agentic AI, where you have a group of different agents that are working on a not just a prompt, but kind of working on a business problem, because then you're not formulating, give me this and this and this. You can actually state a problem, and then AI decompose the problem into actionable steps. I think you maybe know about the chain of thoughts, and then gives this task to different agents, and then they execute it, they communicate, interact, and then escalate back to human only when it's necessary to provide an input. And that is currently innovation trigger, and that's where we from Spryker see the most value is coming for software delivery, or will be coming from. As of now, it is innovation trigger. It's not yet like it's not picking like peak of expectations or even disillusionment and very, very far from plateau. But we believe that this approach with Agentic AI is actually capable of revolutionizing software delivery. And that we also, what we at Spryker, we are preparing for. So, if you're talking about that we have to be ready for this Agentic AI, and that it's probably, like as we also discussed before, as a tool, if you just give to someone, it won't give a significant results. What does it mean and how to get ready for that? And in my opinion, it's some kind of a transformation that we also seen before. When we just started with the waterfall, I think just some of us remember it. It was everything like everyone had a super defined role. Everything was pre-planned, all of the requirements were written, and then we just moved to agile. We said like, okay, now we're a bit more flexible, we're working on iterations, we can actually not mandatorily know everything from the beginning. And this actually transformation that required some time. It requires some time, some changes in skill of people, also the policies and practices how we worked. Very, very similar then happened with the DevOps practice, because then development team started to own the full cycle, including operations. And then development team started to also own the requirement generation and like all of the full lifecycle management. So what we see that AI nativeness is becoming of this kind of magnitude shift. So it's just not enough to use AI as a tool. It will require that the entire software development process, including roles and technologies that used for that, is need to be rethinked in order to use AI as a backbone of software delivery, and not just a tool to give to someone. And this transformation is actually not optional. It's how we'll in future stay competitive. For this, we'll come a bit later. So if you see that like AI native transformation, it's really like a transformation on a magnitude that we've seen before with like really big paradigm shifts, then it would require like a shift in the 3 different areas. Very standard one, first one is the people, so skills and roles. And it will require moving from I am a developer, or I'm QA engineer, or I'm some just a product owner, towards I can formulate a problem, and I can use AI to execute it, to find the solution, to validate the input. So it means that actually people shifting, okay, somebody call it generalists, others call it just like builders. But it means that just role of software engineer is changing, it's evolving to use. I still have to be very good and very proficient in architecture, finding solutions for complex problems, thinking in systems, but it also means that I have to be ready now and know how to deal with AI. Going further to processes, like the processes how software delivery works has to be also rethinked. AI has to be not just a tool integrated somewhere, but it has to be like as a cornerstone of this process. Also, the human in the loop approach has to be established. Also, with the whole process, so we are also evaluating what AI gives us, and we're finding whether it's the right solution, it's the right approach. It's not actually ignoring security, it's not ignoring like NFRs and others. And the KPIs have to be rethinked about how we evaluate it, because AI tools, they actually quite often even pay as you go. So that's why token efficiency become quite an interesting topic. Otherwise, you'll end up with a quite interesting costs. And the third one is automation, or another way like a foundation. Continuous integration system has to work differently, because then you involve your, like if you want to achieve the automation, you'll need to have your agents in continuous integration system. Your pipelines, your deployment, how you work with the documentation, how you work with tests. It's just not enough that you have someone separately writing the test and someone separately creating documentation. It becomes a joint pipeline. And the value comes when all of these 3 pillars being addressed simultaneously. Because if you just start with the roles, but you don't provide any automation, don't provide any actually processes, that will be as of today. Then it was actually what was in a presentation, when you expect from people that they become super generalists, super masters that can do everything with AI, but there is no environment for this is created. So it's super important that all of these 3 pillars actually being executed simultaneously. Then the new software delivery process would be looking something similar to like that. Then instead of one cycle, there would be multiple. And then different kind of human involvement will be also different on different levels, starting with discovery and experimentation, where we need to have humans defining the problems, iterating fast, using AI for prototyping. That's why actually your vibe coding works perfectly fine, all of the solutions like V0, like Lovable, like Bolt, because that's not something that goes in production. It's something what you really use to create a lot of ideas, to validate them, and to find what really is necessary to go further to development. The second stage is where business ideas actually meet technical validations. So what kind of architecture boundaries this business idea has to be put in? Because AI in the end of the day doesn't have any feeling whether something is good or bad. AI will be executing within the boundaries that has been defined within the functional requirements and technical. That's where the value of technical people is extremely important to define for the particular business problem what exactly the architecture is here, to solve it scalable, to solve it maintainable, to solve it secure. And once these packages have been done, so this work is being done, then we can go to human-orchestrated AI agentic flow, where then you have human as supervisor. But then if you have all of this information prepared, AI agents can generate the code, can validate the code, can create the tests, can write documentation, with a human just orchestrating it. And what it means actually is that the role, and not even the role, but the thinking process is changing. In general, like what we are working on is changing. As of now, most of the time we're spending with what? Writing code, right? With like quite soon, I'm not saying that like it will be this year, but quite soon, probably even coming like next year and sooner, our work will evolve towards thinking instead of just typing the code. Thinking about the architecture, thinking about how to solve the business problem, because AI will be very good into creating your code. But you need to think in advance about what kind of code you want to have, what kind of quality of the code, what kind of architecture around this code you want to have. And that's what will be valuable also for profiles of engineers, not the people who can type fast, because AI will be able to type anyway faster. That I think there won't be any way to compete like for code creation. But where we will be very valuable as engineers is actually to transform the already validated business idea into architecture-proven approach, or even like a package or design that then AI can validate and deploy. And there is already one good example how it can work, so-called vibe coding, right? So the tools that I think you've seen a lot of posts on like LinkedIn, on X, about how cool it is, because it gives actually already today a lot of value. It's super fast. You really get the result very fast. It's also accessible to everyone. You don't need to be a software engineer to write the code. You don't need to know TypeScript, you don't need to know Python, JavaScript, PHP, whatever language. You can come with your business idea, or you can get something what really works. And it's really getting for prototyping, because it costs almost nothing. Your prototype is almost for free. But it has some disadvantages, very obviously one. First of all, it needs human review. Probably not the biggest disadvantage, because you will still like reviewing in today's code, but it needs a human review because of hallucinations. Sometimes it just gives us something what's completely unusable. Going further, it overlooks NFRs. And here's about security, scalability, performance, accessibility, maintainability, everything what's actually enterprise software is about. I don't think that any of projects that we are working on can just ignore them and say, okay, I don't care about any of this, just let's wipe code, some code and put it on production. And last, but also quite important, it has a very limited context. So as of today, you can write the prompts, you can write even multiple prompts, but I think if you played with these tools, you notice that after a couple of iterations, maybe if you put like 3-4 A4 pages size of information, it starts to actually lose the context. And that's where these tools are not yet ready for application for enterprise projects. And these two problems, they're really like the critical now for using it in production. But that's where also the big AI labs and the big companies are actually working on, increasing the context window, also making it more robust and more educatable based on your project and your architecture rules. And that's just we are believing that vibe coding with the tools that we have is just a nice, first of all, entry point to Agentic AI, and second, it's nice actually prototype even for us to see where it's moving. And that it actually will become more smarter and will be able to do more, but still we need to have people who will be smart enough to validate the outcome, to validate the result, and to validate and to actually provide the right guardrails in terms of like technological guardrails. Now it's enough with a bit theory. We're just talking about a bit what Spryker is doing about this and what you can take from this for you. And I will start just how we see in general the problem at Spryker from kind of what's our mental model here. And we see it more like in a 3 horizons approach. The first horizon is provide a foundation. We see that first of all, we need to make sure that everyone is equipped with all of the necessary information, abstractions for different AI technologies, and necessary configurations of AI. Then the second, once we are done with the first horizon, the second one is about acceleration. How we can, from Spryker side, enable building of AI features on scale, which are secure, which are performant, which are compliant, and which actually, from a cost perspective, also viable to be put in a production environment. And once that will be done, then I will go to the third horizon. It's actually where AI can be used on a Spryker platform for disruption. That can be AI-powered checkout, or AI-powered store experience, or AI-powered new business flow. But it cannot just go, we won't go to the horizon 3 without we are finishing horizon 1, going 2 and 3. because there is actually just an evolution that you need to go through. And to give it a bit of like what we are now working on in Horizon 1 in action, we are working on an enabling program that will provide in our academy and best practices playbook for engineers, how to configure Windsurf, Cursor, and different other tools, how to use it with Spryker, what is the best practices to build business features with AI. Going towards the processes and tools, we are building currently AI tools configurations for different tools and standards, how to make it as efficient as possible using on Spryker projects, and use case prompt library for different pieces of functionality, how to build very quickly glue API endpoint, how to build very quickly database like parts, how to build very quickly data import. So then just use prompts that you already validated Spryker that give you 80% of value and functionality where you can just write 20% of what's left. And going towards the automation efficiency and the foundation itself, we are willing to provide like an AI core, so the necessary abstraction that gives you MCPs, that gives you like other protocols, that gives you an abstraction to work with the different models. So then you can focus on building AI functionality on a project level without trying to reinvent the wheel constantly. And the second one is actually AI development SDK. We are working on giving you like a software development kit that will help developers to be faster and more efficient on a project level, because we also have the same problem. We want to be fast in delivering Spryker functionality, and AI feels as a really viable solution for that. But we're also trying to be realist. We don't expect that AI will just generate 100% of code. But even if it gives 80% of a standard code and let you focus on 20%, that's already a lot of value. To see how it's a bit more like applicable directly, for engineers, as I said, will be education materials. Then for IDs and agentic AI configurations, domain-specific prompts, SDK, use case-specific GPTs, for GitHub Copilot, Windsurf, Cursor, and Cloud Code. That's where we want to provide all of the necessary rules, configurations, and prompts that they're working in these environments. As of now, we are not targeting PHP Storm because AI is not the strongest side of this IDE. For businesses, we are working on AI core and platform, so making sure that you don't need to build constantly the foundation part, best practices in terms of how to deal with AI, how to optimize for inference, how to make it secure, implementation examples for MCP, for Agentic AI, for chatbots, for different use cases. We're also working on an AI expert task force. We already have expertise in company about how to deal with the different AI use cases, so we will be also willing to work closer with the customers to provide our experience and also learn from them to be able to improve it. And to make sure that it's actually GDPR and other necessary compliance by design. Here we're targeting mostly about like a SaaS API providers, something like OpenAI for these features to be powered by them. Also AWS Bedrock, so then something what's coming from our path, and we are open for other LLM providers. And our shared goal is actually to develop so we can together deliver faster results. Coming now to our learnings a bit, because like we are working on this now for more than half a year, like and actively trying to develop different part of functionality. First of all, build what's unique for projects and not try to reinvent the wheel in terms of like AI. We try to build our own even version of, let's say, Copilot or Cursor. We ended up like even benchmarking with the prompts that the value is almost the same, but development experience is way worse. So we also see that it's way better for businesses also to invest and like when you're even working on a project level to build what's really the differentiation for the projects rather than try to fine-tune or create another model, at least in the beginning. It's better to take what foundation provides. Then choose the right model for your task. Selecting the right model is actually very important for success of the initiative itself and extremely important for cost. Because selecting not the right model will give you way worse results. Optimize inference in runtime. What we have seen so far, independently from taking which large language model from any of the providers, if you just use them directly as is, it's extremely expensive. It's super expensive for any kind of business interesting features. There are practices on how to optimize, how to make sure that it's not just being used super directly, let's put it like this, how to use it in a smart way. And that like to make functionality, business viable, it has to be optimized for inference. And last, and I think it's actually the most interesting for this group, or at least it was the most interesting discovery for me, software development best practices become even more important than they were before. Very simple reason why. AI doesn't really judge where it's beautiful or bad. It doesn't really has a taste where it's a good code or bad code. AI just multiplies the code and rules that you have in the code base. So if you have well-structured code base, you have separation concern, you have all of the necessary architecture practices in place, you will get from AI code that looks the same and actually nice and pleasant to work with. If you have a mess on the project level, AI will just multiply the mess and make it quite soon unmaintainable. A bit of like, look where it's going. Quite soon, last year I was doing a prediction like about AI agents. This year I also wanted to be like a small prediction about what we will be talking about next year. And here I actually see 3 potential scenarios. The first one, AI will just stay as a tool, as we've seen on one of the first slides. Every role use AI separately. And to be honest, I don't really believe that it will stay the same. With how it goes and how it's being adopted and how much value it brings to developers, that is a quite improbable scenario. Another one, AI will become a leader and replace most of engineers because it will be just such a cool solution that will be generating everything in production level quality. That for now I also don't believe because like from maturity of technology, we are very far from that. And what I see that predicts that AI will stay as a partner. And what it actually means, that AI and humans will actually, and us will be working side by side as partners, and it's also what it means as well, that the teams that will be using AI in an efficient way will replace the teams that won't be using it. Very simple. Last slide with like a bit of information where it's also going towards. I think you also noticed that, or maybe you've seen some news, cost per token in general goes down. So AI becomes cheaper. But also with the evolution of tools and how powerful they become and what kind of tasks they can tackle, token consumptions go extremely fast. And what we will now started to see at Spryker, that we have engineers complaining and saying, I am like just after like few weeks of work, even within the months, I already meet my limits of AI consumption. I need to have just another plan. I need to buy more. We need to buy more tokens. And you know, so like feedback, it's now limiting me. I cannot really work about that. And that's where it's become interesting because we need to start thinking about like AI, something like about, it has to be kept under like control, something like with the cloud cost. If you don't look into them, usage is exploding. The same with AI tools. If you're not really making smart use of AI solutions, you will just have, like you'll use all of the tokens very quickly, and then you will be just limited with that. Or you will completely be requesting more and more budget from your like team leader of your company, what not always will be approved. So that's why actually interesting, the token efficiency is becoming a new, actually the performance metric for a lot of areas. So very quickly to the recap. So then we have questions. What is 3 key learnings that I want just you to take out of this session? AI is here to stay, but it's also important that adopting it unintentionally won't help to actually move a needle. It has to become really transformation initiative. I think you also heard about that today in a couple of sessions on the main stage where we were discussing about how to make sure that AI is not just another buzzword and that teams are not just tired from leadership pushing it. Transformation is required. So to have a value out of AI, the changes have to happen simultaneously on educating people, changes the processes, and providing the necessary foundation. And in Spryker, we're willing and we're trying to lead the way. We want to make sure that we provide all of the necessary equipment so all of the engineers that working with Spryker actually getting from Spryker the value. And like not going through the learnings that we went, but we really help you to leapfrog it. And as I said, like AI won't replace us, but the teams that leverage AI will replace the teams that don't replace it. The very last slide, if you remember one thing from this presentation, that is this one, that AI-native development becomes a competitive advantage. The companies start actually to measure, and it will be even more important in next year, like what is the value delivery teams are providing based on also how is the value we're getting from AI. So it's extremely important that we not only trying to play in a game where it's like use AI tool, be more effective, but we are definitely making sure that we're using AI systematically, and we're also preparing ourselves as engineers for the future where we'll be less coding, but we'll be really work using AI as like in a smart way. Thank you, everyone, and questions.